Today on the Middle Ground, the rain has wreaked havoc on our state, washing out roads, bridges, and causing massive potholes. Well, up ahead, we'll discuss the condition of the roads and what can be done to fix them. And our lawmakers have wrapped up the 2015 legislative session. We'll break down the highlights of this year and what's ahead. We'll have all this and more right here on the Middle Ground. Oklahomans need their voice in the public policy conversation. Every discussion about public policy solutions right now is Washington-centered. So the Middle Ground focuses on shifting the conversation back here to the heartland and what the people of Oklahoma think about their lives and their future. The status quo is failing. Regardless of what your beliefs are, the status quo isn't working. Well, that's a middle ground. That is the middle concept that we can all agree on. From the middle, we can come and find those solutions together that empower our people and create opportunity for all. Good morning, Oklahoma, and welcome to the Middle Ground. I'm your host, Michael Carnuccio, and I'm joined as I am each week by Trent England, host of Middle Ground Radio, which you can hear weekday mornings from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. on 1640 a.m. The Eagle. Trent, you're also expanding the show. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but it's been an exciting week. Of course, let's rewind a little bit for our viewers. Last week we had on Estela Hernandez, Vice Chair for the Oklahoma GOP, and among other things, we were talking about the Southern Republican Leadership Conference, which is still getting attention for Oklahoma. You were broadcasting live. Catch us up on what happened at the very end of last weekend and what's been playing out this week. Well,
it was a really big show. I mean, this was almost all of the Republican candidates for president coming through town, down at the Cox Convention Center, a 3-day process. And in the end, they had a straw poll, Sooner poll. Bill Shepard put that straw poll together. And kind of a surprise winner. This has created some national buzz. Dr. Ben Carson, who is probably the most non-traditional of the Republican candidates, especially those, he polls about 9% in the national polls, which is pretty good. That puts him 5 or 6 among the candidates, the growing bank of candidates. And so that was significant. I think a lot of people walked away from this as a real test of where the candidates are, and Ben Carson, never run for office before in his life, had a big campaign team there, and 25% of the folks voted for him in the straw poll. That was enough to win.
Number 2, I think, was Governor Scott Walker of Wisconsin, who's been leading a lot of national polls. He still shows strong. How did the rest of that straw poll finish out?
Well, that's right. Scott Walker came in just over 20%. Ted Cruz just a little bit beneath that, and then everybody else was pretty far back from those 3 front runners. And there was a little bit of kind of some interesting buzz around Ted Cruz. He couldn't be there, and a lot of people think that was because Rand Paul filibustered in the Senate, set the Senate schedule back a little bit. Rand Paul wasn't planning to attend the Southern Republican Leadership Conference. All the other senators running for president were, and so there's a little bit of maybe, I won't call it sour grapes, but there was some speculating that maybe Ted Cruz would have done even better if not for Rand Paul's filibuster kind of throwing the Senate into a little bit of a delay.
You had on this week on the show, you had on Senator Ted Cruz's pollster and chief strategist, Chris Wilson, who we've had on this show before, and played some clips of an interview that you did with him last week. And I thought it was fascinating looking at what this election cycle is going to be like and how it's going to be different from past cycles that voters have experienced. What are some of the highlights from that discussion?
Well, that's right. We had a great conversation on the radio program about campaign strategy. It's fun to talk to Chris Wilson. He is a member of the Cruz campaign staff, but he's an Oklahoma City native. And a lot of the questions I think people have, especially after Rick Santorum announced his candidacy this week.
A couple candidates jump in.
And you have, he ran before. You have Arkansas Governor Mike Huckabee, former governor, who has jumped in the race. They both did very well in the past, and yet you have this new, I think, kind of a new kind of candidate, a younger Republican candidate, Ted Cruz, Marco Rubio, Carly Fiorina, very different kind of messages, I think, emphasis on the debt and national security rather than some of the social issues and, even some of the business issues that I think Republicans have talked about in the past. And That's one of the big questions. I think that's one of the things that Ted Cruz has to do, and this would be true for a number of these candidates, is capture a lot of a couple of these groups of voters, evangelicals and Tea Party voters, really the focus for Senator Cruz. And I think the focus for a lot of these, I think that's a big block of the Republican electorate.
So you're talking candidates, and this has been a busy week, and we're hearing that next week is going to be a pretty busy week as well. So let's stay on the Republican side. You mentioned that Rick Santorum jumped in, of course. Rick Santorum, former senator that won the state of Oklahoma in the 2012 primary process. Who else has jumped in here in the past week, and what's this going to do to the field?
Well, former New York Governor George Pataki. I mean, it's kind of a blast from the past, right? And, you know, it's an interesting dynamic. George Pataki was a popular governor, Republican governor of a blue state, and that's no small feat. He was governor during September 11th, 2001, so that really put him at the forefront as a governor dealing with some national security issues. At the same time, at this point, the field is so crowded, and when you look at the national polls, which matter to the extent that they define who will be in the debates that start in August, you know, you have a few candidates taking up most of the oxygen in the room. There's not a lot left for the rest.
Let's go to the Democrat side. We have about a minute left. Of course, we've talked about Hillary Clinton before. Bernie Sanders, senator from Vermont, is in, and now we're hearing that maybe Maryland governor, former governor, I should say, Martin O'Malley, might be jumping in the next week or so. What are you hearing on that?
Well, you know, there is a lot of interest among people who run Democrat state political parties or other Democrat apparatus. They want a competitive race. Martin O'Malley seems like the best shot for them to get that. We'll see.
We'll see about that, and of course, we're going to talk on the show here in a little bit, not only about what's been happening with the rain and transportation, we're going to talk about Oklahoma politics, how session finished up, and what that means moving forward for not only the next legislative session, but the election year in Oklahoma next year. Folks, we're going to take a quick break right now. Record rainfalls have caused lots of problems on roadways all over the state. What can be done to fix that? We'll talk about it ahead. Stay with us.
What is hope? You cannot see it nor hear it, and though you can't touch it, you can feel it. You feel it when your heart is full and spirit strong. You know when hope is present, and you certainly feel it when it is gone. The original meaning of hope was synonymous with trust, a promise, a confidence, even salvation. Central Oklahoma Habitat for Humanity has been providing this type of hope to our community for nearly 3 decades. And just like the homes we've built, repaired, and rebuilt, our hope gives families joy and peace, protection, strength, courage, and comfort. It gives them endurance, warmth, and confidence they so desperately needed. If you are searching for hope or wanting to provide hope for those in such a need, please contact us, Central Oklahoma Habitat for Humanity, building houses, building hope.
We have a vision of Oklahoma that in the 21st century, you and I can be living in a daily land run where freedom just seems to seep out of the ground, where free enterprise creates opportunity for everyone at all levels of society. That is the type of Oklahoma that we were founded on. That's what this state was created upon, and that's where we see our future. OCPA is founded on the philosophy that free markets, individual liberty, individual initiative, and personal responsibility are what build safe, sustainable societies. It's what empowers people. Anyone, no matter what their hopes or their dreams are, should care about the success of OCPA, because as we breed excellence, as we succeed, what we're doing is ensuring that they have every opportunity available to them at their fingertips, and that no matter how big their dream, they can achieve it, because we're going to clear that pathway for them. Welcome back. We're joined this morning with Bobby Stem from the Association of General Contractors in Oklahoma to talk all about our roads and bridges and what's happening with the rainfall and the impact that it's having. Bobby, I got to first thank you for being here with us this morning. I've got to start off by asking you, because we saw a press release the end of this past week where a couple state lawmakers were saying, look, our district now has roadways getting washed out, and this kind of came out of a discussion at the very end of session. So specifically, start with the roadways and bridges being washed. What are we seeing across the state from all this rainfall?
It's been enormous. What we would normally call potholes are sinkholes. I mean, yesterday alone, somebody falls into a sinkhole. The wrecker tries to get them out. The wrecker falls into a sinkhole. But we have some really catastrophic things happening underneath our roadways. These things are going to be very, very expensive, and they're going to be emergencies.
So, I mean, just looking around the state, do you have a sense what areas are hardest hit? I mean, everybody thinks that their neighborhood potholes are the worst,
Sure.
but do we know yet what areas are really need attention?
Your county roadways are in horrible shape after this, and there's no doubt about it. And here's the thing we need to be scared about. We have county roadways, and in about 2.5 months, we're going to have school buses driving down county roadways, going over these county bridges. And there's going to be some real activity over the next probably 10 weeks to get up underneath these bridges and figure out, are they dangerous? Are they unsafe? I mean, these are serious issues, and they're all going to cost money.
So we had on the show here on the Middle Ground in the summer, we had on Gary Ridley, Secretary of Transportation, to talk about the 8-year plan and where we were and how many years are left and what's the evolution after that,
Sure.
and to kind of explain a lot of those dynamics. I'm left wondering, after all this weather, does this interject into that 8-year plan? Does this throw it out of the mix? I mean, how is this going to impact the state's plan moving forward?
Think of it in two ways. You've got the state highway system, and let's divide that up into two things. One is the 8-year plan, which is rebuilding. But another part of ODOT, or the state system, is maintaining. The maintenance is what was cut this year in the legislature. That maintenance is what's needed most right now. Now let's talk about the other system, and that's the county system. And those guys are getting obliterated right now. So that's going to they're going to have to address it. And I think that there's some movement right now to address it quickly.
And when you say, just real quick, when you say obliterated, you mean that those are the roadways that are really suffering from all this rain. Those are the ones that are having to work immediately that we have to solve. And so that's kind of the context?
That's exactly right. I mean, take these small communities. You literally have roads that are shut down and that are linking two communities. They're not just shut down. The roads are no longer there. And I want people to think about a school bus, a heavy school bus, in 10 to 12 weeks going over some of these roads. I'm glad that it's the summertime and we've got our chance to get this thing fixed.
Has the legislative session made it, the budget outcome, basically made this more difficult? Is this, or do we have the money now, but we're going to be set back later in the year? I mean, how does the budget agreement affect all of these repairs?
Good question. There's a good and two bads. The good is 8-year plan has been kept whole. We're on progress for the 8-year rolling construction plan to take place. The two bads are, one is ODOT's funding was cut by $30 million. Gas tax revenues taken and put somewhere else. But then the counties have taken a huge hit. And right now you've got the majority of Oklahoma's rural. The majority of Oklahoma is getting swept away down a river somewhere or a stream. I think you're going to see some folks call very soon for special sessions.
Now, how does that work, though? I mean, the budget is the state budget, and you're saying that the counties are the ones that get hit the hardest. What's the dynamic there? How does the money flow work to cause this to happen?
Sure. And that's been a disagreement between the House and Senate. There's been some folks say, look, there's a county government. We're not here to support county governments. We're here to take care of the state. So let the counties go deal with raising those dollars. But then you have the rest of Oklahoma that says, hey, we're all in this together. So we're going to need some state dollars to take care of these state roads and bridges. But there are two different trains of thought there.
Yeah, and we should point out for our viewers that during the last week of session, I think it was on Wednesday night, that the House was debating the budget, and there were a lot of lawmakers over the transportation issue specifically that had concern, and I think a lot of them were some rural lawmakers.
Right.
That was an issue that really held up session for a while, and they had to talk through. It came up, I know, as well in the Senate. At the end of the day, what made them comfortable, I guess, is a question in order to move forward with the budget deal. And do you think now, a week later, after what they're seeing across the state, are they uncomfortable again? You referenced we may be in a special session soon.
Right. The Senate wanted to take a deeper cut. The House wanted to allow for about $40 million more annually to stay in the road program. I'll tell you this, if we were 1 week away from adjournment right now, I think the whole conversation would be different.
Totally
what's
different.
occurring. But I do believe that you'll see some voices come out saying we've got to come back to the table and tap the, wait for it, rainy day fund.
So that is, folks around the state are looking and hearing that a budget deal was cut, taking from a lot of revolving funds and everything else. But the rainy day fund really exists for, ironically, rainy days or emergencies like this. So that's where you're saying this could tie in. What about supplemental funding? Is that too far away for our road maintenance programs to be able to last at the rate we're going?
And I think everything's on the table at this point in time,
Okay.
and that's probably why the governor came out a few days ago saying, hey, I want to push ODOT and have them access every fund they can and make things quick. which it takes the leadership to do that. There's only so much we can do. There's only so many dollars. So I think that if you're really going to address this, you're going to have people come to the table.
We've got about a minute left here. Any final thoughts that you have, or anything our viewers should know about what they're dealing with in their communities and what they might expect to see in conversation coming in the next few weeks?
Sure. I think what you're going to see is rural parts of the state are going to be in tremendous trouble. I think you're going to see some state highways with issues. We saw I-35 today with some sinkholes as well. Bottom line is, if it has to do with the road or bridge right now, we still have rain coming, then we are going to be in some problems. And I think it may take people returning to the Capitol building to address this.
Bobby, thanks so much for your time today and for all the good work. Good luck to you this year.
Thank you guys very much.
Well, folks, we need to pause for a quick break, but up ahead, we'll recap that 2015 legislative session, the new laws, the budget cuts, other changes ahead, and what you can expect going into the election year. Stay with us.
A well's output is only as strong as landing the production stream. In extreme conditions, call for extreme durability. At Syntec, our engineers understand what matters. That's why we craft centralizers differently than anyone else in the industry. Laser cut from a single piece of special steel alloy and featuring an innovative heat-treated stop collar. Syntec centralizers create optimum standoff and flexibility for enhanced cementation in any conditions. It's simply smarter. No welding, no weak points. That means minimum torque, greater strength, and superior drag reduction. From lateral shale operations on land to ultra-deep water, you only have to buy it once. No fishing, no failures, no BS. Our best-in-class centralizers outperform the competition on any rig and any challenge. And we've got customizable simulations to prove it. We know that downtime isn't an option, and we take pride in providing our customers a world-class product with world-class service and support, made in the USA. Others still try to imitate it, but none can replicate it, not even close. There's only one centralizer this strong, Syntec Centralizers, an international symbol of quality.
They didn't see that she was normal, but different. They just seen her with a disability.
The foundation of it is to provide a choice to those parents who know best for their children of what would be the best educational environment for them.
They are way behind at the start of the race. This is just helping them catch up a little bit.
They saw our children and how well they're doing, that they'd understand why this is important.
Welcome back, folks. Joining us in studio this morning is Dave Bond, CEO of OCPA Impact. And Dave has been a guest on the show before. Dave, thanks for coming back.
Thanks for having me.
You bet. You came on before legislative session, a little bit in the middle of session. Now the session has concluded. And Sonny died, and the governor, I know, is signing bills and moving forward. Recap us this session at some of the highlights that you think came out of the 2015 legislative session.
First half of the session was kind of dominated by a variety of issues, but a lot of which leaned toward making Oklahoma a better place to do business, a better place to be a taxpayer, a better place to have a kid in school. You had some school choice proposals for Oklahoma parents advance or at least stay alive till next year. You had some Wisconsin-style paycheck protection reforms. You also had some stuff for new innovative companies like Uber and Lyft to make this a better state for those types of companies. The second half was a lot about budget, a lot about spending. A lot of people were concerned with the price of oil dropping in half, that was really going to impact tax collections. Thus far this year, we're on pace to set record tax collections,
Really?
even with that in place. So, but again, they were budgeting for the following year, so time will tell. And also some new bonding for some state museums and legislators from different parts of the state taking up different sides in that conversation. Those were a few of the highlights, and then making sure that the income tax cut that's scheduled for January gets preserved. There were some folks who wanted to see that go away so they could spend more money, and until it takes effect, I'm sure there will be people who still beat that drum.
So we were just talking about the possibility of a special session for transportation. You know, maybe
sure.
the folks who want to revisit the tax cut that's already scheduled to go into effect that you mentioned. Is that really in the cards? What do you think?
I think that's a possibility. It might depend on how long this unique weather continues. I think we're on pace already to set record rainfall for the year now. And so probably a lot will depend on that. Time will tell. They've come back into special session for a few things the past few years, and I don't think it's out of the question.
And a special session, essentially, so our viewers at home understand, they could come in for one day, take up one issue or two issues, get it addressed, have a deal worked out in advance, and they could be out. This isn't a month or two long engagement that you're discussing.
Sure. You know, they already tapped the rainy day money so they could increase funding for mental health programs, so they might as well tap it at this point, I suppose, to accelerate some road and bridge maintenance.
So let me ask you to go a little bit further on that, because we were just sitting here talking about how the rainy day fund is for emergencies. You're saying it was tapped for certain mental health programs, and I know there's been a lot of discussion about this budget deal. There's still going to be discussion about the budget deal. Can you break some of that down? Because I think our viewers at home would be surprised, having just heard what the rainy day fund is for, that's what it was used for. What else is in the budget?
Yeah, so from the start of the session through the course of it, there were different estimates that there was going to be a budget shortfall for Oklahoma government of anywhere from $300 million to in excess of $600 million. Some of that was due to the price of oil going down, but as we said, I mean, we're probably going to bring in record tax collections this year regardless, although next year time will tell. But also, there's been a lot of one-time spending the past few years. You know, Republicans have kept the growth of government below the rate of inflation since they took control back in 2010, and that's significant. But still, there's been a lot of one-time expenditures along the way that have kind of created somewhat of an artificial budget hole. And so to keep spending rolling in some areas of government and maybe not cut spending for others, they raided the rainy day fund. They shifted some other things around, as Bobby was talking about earlier, particularly impacting roads going forward, but some other things too. And so that's kind of the dynamic we're in now.
So you're talking about them taking these one-time revenues and spending them on basically continuing obligations that the state has, so ongoing programs, but using one-time revenues. Is that the problem that they have? Right.
I mean, it's the nature of government to increase its spending limits, its spending habits, regardless if it's a state level government, federal government, local government, what have you. I mean, that's the tendency. It's hard to say no for politicians. That's not usually their forte. And so that feeds on itself year after year. And even when you've got record high tax collections, you can still have a budget hole because you've been overspending along the way. If you've got credit card debt, you may make more money, but you still got the credit card debt.
Education is an issue that you hear about every election cycle and then also during every legislative session. But in terms of the budget, as I understand it, common education was what they say held harmless and kept at the same funding level. Career tech, career technology, and then higher education both received a cut. Is that correct?
In their appropriations, but I mean, there's a lot of different things that come into state government funding other than just what the legislature directly appropriates. For education, for instance, per pupil spending in this state has been at record highs the past few years, per pupil, per kid, when you factor in the state appropriated money that legislators control, the off-the-top money that they still technically control, but it's not part of the appropriations process, plus the federal money, plus the local property tax money. We're spending more on kids in public schools than we ever have in Oklahoma.
Dave, we've got about a minute left here in the segment. Project forward to us. Coming out of this session, what do you anticipate going into next legislative session, which is an election year? What do you see happening?
I mean, the price of oil is going to be on everybody's mind until it gets higher, probably than $60, maybe $70 or more a barrel. I mean, our economy in Oklahoma is not diversified enough to withstand that for too long a period of time, as we saw in the 80s, and we still haven't diversified enough since then. Other states are moving to be more and more competitive, looking at some of the stuff we've done, like income tax reductions in Oklahoma, trying to imitate that with pretty good results so far, and those state competitiveness factors will continue to be in play.
Any other issues, education, any budget issues that you think will carry over into next year?
There's several things related to school choice and parental options that will be moving again next year. Absolutely.
Dave, thanks so much for being here. Good luck the rest of the year and next year again. Folks, we need to take a quick break. We'll be right back with some final thoughts right after this.
Yeah, the Liberty Foundation's job is to essentially shape the debate in states, and we do that by going into the states and making sure that we talk with local groups about how to talk about the jobs issue, how to frame the debate on the jobs issue, so that way it's connecting with American citizens in a way that is pro-free market.
And we can really lead on these issues to try to marry the needs of business, who need talent if they're going to keep the jobs in America, with the needs of the individual who needs those skills if they want to elevate their ability to earn and live their version of the American dream.
So a competitive federalism and really understanding how competition is healthy for the people in creating liberty and freedom for everyone. I think that in a macro sense is our greatest challenge going forward.
I faced numerous challenges. Me and both of my children were homeless.
Positive Tomorrows is Oklahoma's only elementary school serving homeless children, and we serve students that are in grades kindergarten through 5th grade.
We're a temporary solution to help families who are going through difficult times.
Give parents in poverty the opportunity to send their child to a different school other than their neighborhood public school by giving them a savings account that would allow them to make some choices based on what their child needs.
There's so much potential in our school, and the ESA laws would completely just allow us to tap into that potential.
And that's all we want for our kids, is to know that there's something beyond this. They're not their situation.
Folks, welcome back. It's been a very exciting and active legislative session. We've enjoyed having the show on the air and interacting with you on social media and being able to have this conversation. Remember, this whole show is about how you can write a better future and you can be involved in your government at the local level and the state level, and that is how we create a pathway to prosperity for our families and we empower our citizens. And so we thank you for being part of that. We're actually going to take a little bit of a break. Next week is our final show for the summer, and then we're going to be back with you in the fall talking about the election cycle and some of the debates that are coming up. And then we're going to be back with a full slate of shows with you during the legislative session starting in January of 2016. But Trent, how can folks stay involved with us between now and the fall when we're back? What other options are there?
Well, we're on the radio every weekday on AM 1640 The Eagle. So that's 7 to 9 a.m. Actually going to be 7 to 10 a.m.
Starting a new show, that's right.
We're expanding, adding a third hour. Going to talk, the first 2 hours will be really what we do on the TV show here, talking about what's going on right now, how people can make a difference. The third hour will be more about our history, our Constitution, some of the principles that really matter, still with we're always coming back to what can we do about it. And then MiddleGround News, you can find us on Twitter, find us on Facebook, find our website. Hired a journalist going to be providing some real in-depth reporting for citizens, for people who want to make a difference in Oklahoma.
That's right, folks. MiddleGround now has an investigative journalist, a print journalist. You can see his news reporting at middlegroundnews.com. You can also continue to go to our Facebook page, facebook.com/MiddleGround TV, or go to at MiddleGround TV on Twitter. Listen to Trent at 7 a.m. to 9 a.m., now 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. with the Thoughtful Patriot starting 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. weekdays on 1640 a.m. Trent, we've got just a little bit of time here before our final show next week. Any quick thoughts on what folks can expect this week?
Well, we're going to be watching the presidential race. It's going to be shaping up, I think, and everybody's focusing on who's going to make it into those debates.
Folks, we sure have enjoyed having you with us. We look forward to having you with us next week. And again, stay engaged on the radio station, stay engaged online at MiddleGround TV, and go to middlegroundnews.com. We look forward to your thoughts and comments. Until we see you again, folks, have a wonderful week, work hard, have fun, and we'll talk to you again next week.